Ask yourself if you are truly happy and fulfilled. Well, our next guest says he can set you on that way. His name is Mark Fournier, master life coach, author, speaker, founder of the Center for Empowerment, and he is considered one of the leading authorities on life coaching.
Being an empowered human being, that means being happy, fulfilled, in control of your life, the whole works, will be both the most difficult thing you've ever done and the easiest thing you've ever done.
Homegrown entrepreneurs and business owners, Evan Ritchie and Cameron Bawden, is owners of two of America's fastest growing and most disruptive companies, Coconut Cleaning and Green Mango Pest Control. Stay tuned for real stories, struggles, insight, and advice from real entrepreneurs in real time.
All right, welcome to the Premium Mindset Podcast. I get to interview my good buddy, Mark Fournier, who has literally changed my life. I've talked about him multiple times on this podcast and all the principles. And I'll start out with this. It was 3:02 today. And I looked at Lexi. I'm like, Mark's never late. What's going on? Is it at 3 or 3:30? And she looked at the counter. She's like, 3:30. I was so worried about your safety because I know, like, you've taught the principle. You can't be on time. You're either early or late.
Right.
And that's who you are for me, man. I love it.
Wow. Well, so you're really talking about brand.
Yeah.
Part of my brand is you can count on me. I do what I say I'll do. I keep my promises.
Yep.
So it's living within a level of integrity where you're basically saying, I will be my word.
Yeah.
If I say it, if I commit to it, you can expect it. Now, not everybody can do that, and not everybody's willing to pay the price.
And some people say they'll do it, but they don't do it.
Exactly, which means that it's not their brand. Their brand is, I'm somebody who doesn't do what he says he'll do. See, most of our brands are haphazard brands. We didn't develop that brand. We didn't say, and in case anybody's wondering, what is a brand? You're not your brand. Your brand is how the world sees you.
I love that.
And we think of it as businesses have a brand, but a human being has one too.
Yeah.
And so you get to ask yourself, how do I want the world to see me?
But even if you try and project this brand, it might not be how other people see it.
Yeah.
Right? Is that...
Yeah. The best way to have the world see you as you want to be seen is to be who you want them to see.
Okay.
And so you decide, how do I want the world to see me? And you can't be everything. So you got to pick and choose. And one of them I picked was integrity. Integrity, by the way, everybody thinks that's about being a good person. No, integrity is being who you say you are.
Yeah.
That's all. If I say I'm a bank robber and
yeah.
I go rob a bank, I have integrity. I tell everybody I'm a bank robber.
Yeah, this is why I woke up at 3:30 a.m. this morning, Mark.
Yeah.
So excited for this moment because
really?
You bring so many nuggets, man. I love it.
Well,
I want to rewind a little bit.
Sure.
How old was I when I met you? I was thinking like I had to have been 6 or 8. 8 years old. And I just remember going to my dad's buddy's house, your house in Paradise Valley, this huge house. And I was just like, who is this guy? And I love telling the story. Do you remember who, this kid's going to go down Tooth Pass?
I remember it clearly. And it's not like I'm proud of this, but we had a neighbor who wouldn't take their Christmas lights down. They left them up 12 months a year, and it was one of those houses
in Paradise Valley.
In Paradise Valley.
Yeah.
And it was a house where people would drive to come past there because they had, like
Griswold.
Griswold. It was exactly like that. It was blinding. And here we were in like March or something. And I said I happened to be talking to your dad, and I said, I'm going to have to go over there and take down their Christmas tree lights sometime when nobody's home.
Okay, I love that. I don't remember this.
He shows up with you, and he says, "Oh, this guy can climb like a monkey." And you were all over it. You're up there, and we're pulling down lights and stuff, and trying to be so careful. And long story short, by the time we got home, I was just seeing this wild-eyed 8-year-old and saying, man, this guy, you were playing full out and you were into it. But what we were doing wasn't exactly kosher.
Right. Yeah.
But boy, you didn't care. You wanted to do this. And I just looked at your dad and I said, you know what? He's either going to be a multimillionaire or he's going to end up in prison. One way or the other.
I love that. So fast forward, it was 2018. I called my dad one night and I just said, hey, something's missing in my life. I don't know what it is. I need your help. And he said, you got to coach with my buddy, Mark Fournier. And the name, I love your name. Like it just rings, it just flows. And I instantly remembered it. I don't think we've seen each other for a decade, for years, ever since.
You were 3 times as tall.
Yeah. I think it was the next day or within the week, I'm sitting at lunch with you, and I want to start here because I sat down and you said, what do you want out of coaching? And I didn't know what coaching was. I never heard, none of my buddies were doing it at the time.
Right.
And I said,
and you were pretty young. You were 28?
Yeah, it was 7 years ago. Yeah, so 28.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good or bad if I haven't heard of coaching yet.
Fewer people
coach at that age?
Yeah.
Okay.
Most of my clients are millennial.
Okay.
They're still young and hungry.
But like 30 or 25?
Yeah, no. They're well, now with my current coaching rates, they're further into their 30s because to be able to make, to afford.
So I wasn't completely behind the game.
No, but you were definitely on the younger end.
Okay.
Which I loved.
Well, I sat down, and I don't know if you remember this or not. And you're like, "What do you want out of this?" I don't know, but I think I said something to the effect of, "I don't really have an ego." And you just you did kind of that. Like it wasn't a laugh, like I'm laughing at you, you're an idiot, but it was just kind of like, I got a lot to teach you.
Yeah.
So if you're going to spend 5 to 10 minutes about ego and explaining it to the person that's listening, that was like me, that is saying, I'm a good guy. I don't have an ego. What would you tell them?
Yeah, I'd say, I understand. Yeah, I know.
Do you want to agree with them?
It feels like that. Yeah, because we hear a lot of bad things about ego. And the truth is, it's kind of earned that reputation. And everyone has an ego. It's inescapable. Even when I teach you how to manage your ego, how to release it, how to control it, it'll still be there, waiting.
Yeah.
And so ego isn't something to be ashamed of or embarrassed about, because we've all got ego. It's something to understand. Understand not only your ego, but the egos of others, because once you realize what ego is, you're going to see it everywhere. You're going to see it in yourself, but you'll see it in everyone, everywhere you go. And everyone needs to understand it. So,
which I saw it in sports. When you introduced it to me, the first time it like really stood out was when I'd go play basketball. Like, whoa, what the heck? He's right.
Yeah.
Sorry, keep going.
No, interrupt any time you like, because I can monologue with the best of them. So we don't want this to turn into a 20-minute dissertation. But what I can tell you is the simplest scenario is, by the time we're 1.5, 2 years old, we've experienced pleasant and unpleasant things in our lives. We have even reached a point where we are starting to experience things socially. By 2 years old, you put 2 kids in a room, 2-year-olds, and you bring in an ice cream and you give it to just one and not the other. You watch that other one scream his head off.
Right.
That's ego. Because ego is saying, that's not fair. By 2 years old,
that's crazy.
We are learning that some things are fair and some things are not fair, and we know that it doesn't feel good. Well, of course, I teach that life isn't fair, but you can't tell that to a 2-year-old. So what happens is we start developing this separate entity, which we call ego. Virtually nobody realizes that ego is it's in your psyche and it's a separate entity. They don't get that. They either think they don't have an ego, or it's just them being in a bad mood.
Yeah.
But it's them. And so, of course, I started explaining it to you and teaching you how it works. And so what happens is your ego develops in order to keep you from feeling the way you felt when they gave the ice cream to this kid and not to you.
Yeah.
Your ego's there to keep you from feeling like you're not okay, you're not good enough, you're wrong, you're broken.
Yeah.
So which all those things you feel that when you lose an argument, or you lose at basketball, or when somebody says something that makes you wrong and them right, all those things. So ego starts to develop to keep you from feeling that way. So how does it do it? By trying to get the opposite results, making sure that you win, that you're right, that you're seen as being the good guy, being the person, this or that. And so it's always fighting for that. And when you look around, it's easier to see ego in others than in ourselves.
Yeah.
When you look around, you'll start to notice it. Just hearing about this will be like, oh, so when these two people are arguing and no, it's this, you said that, no, I didn't, you said this. Those people, the people, Tom and Sherry, they're not even in the room. They're gone.
it's someone-
all that's left is their ego. It's like Elvis has left the building.
Yeah.
What you really see are just two egos, very primitive entities, just trying to do what egos do, trying to be right, trying to win, trying to look good. And of course, you wonder why you can't solve any problems. To say, well, they're not interested in solving the problem.
Yeah, they're just there to fight.
Exactly. And so what do? Well, you learn how to recognize when your ego's engaged, and you learn how to release it. So then the two of you, we can just have a conversation. And it's like the difference between an argument and a discussion. An argument is just about winning. That's run by ego. A discussion is about finding a solution, and that's run without ego. It's what I say is you don't want ego running your life, hijacking your conversations. Ego sucks.
Yeah,
Ego is
he's
not
gonna
your
ruin the
best friend.
conversation every time.
Yeah, and the irony is ego's there supposedly originally formed to help you.
Yeah.
But it ends up being
Hurting you.
like the bodyguard who's 800 pounds and is knocking you over every time it turns or moves. It's squishing everything in sight.
Yeah, I love that. Well, you mentioned, okay, when two people are in a room arguing,
Yeah.
and if you have the capability of knowing what ego is, you'll recognize, crap, I'm engaged right now.
My ego's engaged.
My ego's engaged. What's the best way to like have the discipline to snap out of it?
Yeah. So I'll answer it, but first I want to just put in a little caveat to help you make sure you believe me when I say you are not your ego.
Okay.
And how you know that your ego is a separate entity is because you can observe it. You can observe your ego when it's engaged. Perfect example. Have you ever been in an argument? Yes. Have you ever been in an argument and you know, and you want to say something so badly, but you know that if you say it,
It's gonna go.
it's going to make things worse.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you say it anyhow. That's your ego. That's not you.
You can't control it.
You can't stop saying it, even though it makes no sense. You should not be saying this. It's going to make them twice as upset. It's going to further engage their ego.
Yeah.
And still you do it? Well, it's because it's not you. That's one of the easiest ways to know that your ego is not you. It is a separate entity. Because you need to know that if I'm going to tell you how to disengage it, you have to believe that it isn't you.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I'm just going to disengage myself. No, you're not your ego. In fact, as you remember that assignment I gave you?
Which one?
To spend a week replacing the pronoun I
Yes.
with the words my ego.
Yeah.
And you say, I'm upset that you didn't show up on time.
Yeah.
Instead, you say, my ego is upset that you didn't show up on time. And you do it with everything. You'll find sometimes it's not ego. Like, I'm hungry. Well, your
Yeah.
ego is not a physical entity, so it doesn't get hungry. So you go, my ego is hungry.
Yeah.
No, that's not true.
Yeah.
I'm hungry. But my ego is definitely the one that got upset about you showing up 5 minutes late. Now, in my case, the fact that it turned out, of course, I was 15 minutes early because
Yeah.
that's who I am. And you thought I was 15 minutes late. So you start to recognize when you pay attention, you'll be amazed at how much your ego engages, how often it engages, even once you know about this.
Yeah.
So what do you do when your ego just keeps jumping out and engaging, sometimes so fast you didn't have time to stop it before it started? Is recognize, my ego's engaged, now I need to release it.
Yep.
And how you release your ego is the same way that you stop a dog, a stray dog from barking and whining at your front door for food. How do you get it to stop barking and whining for food?
Give it more
You
food or
feed
give
it.
it away.
Well, since you can't get rid of your ego, you can't get rid of this dog.
You gotta
This dog
feed
is
it.
chained to your front door. It will never leave. The only way to stop it from barking and driving you crazy, feed it.
Yeah.
You give it a bunch of food and it goes to sleep. So remember, ego is engaged because something has triggered your ego to think, I'm
Something.
about to have bad feelings because somebody's about to say something that makes me wrong or look bad or feel bad or
Yeah.
keep me from getting what I think I need to have in order to survive. Somehow, something bad's going to happen. So ego engages and tries to take over. So when you get to this place of saying, my ego's engaged, what do? When I say feed it, it's basically you say to yourself,
Acknowledge it.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm
I
okay.
remember you
I'm
teaching me
safe.
that, and that changed. Listen, my wife and I never had a horrible, like, I have the
Blowout.
best marriage ever. I think we fought maybe 3 or 4 times. And even then, it's not yelling, it's not throwing things
Yeah.
at each other in 13 years.
That's awesome.
But when you taught me
Amazing.
about ego and you coached with Liz as well, and it's really weird the first time you say, when you're in that argument, you say, hey, my ego's engaged. Can we talk about this later? And you actually warned us and we talked about it before. But just that power of like, hey, the first step is understanding that you have the ego. Then it's being able to acknowledge it and have that power, because once again, you want to, like, your ego wants to fight back.
It
right?
doesn't want you to disengage it.
Yeah. So, but when you say, hey, my ego's engaged right now, Liz, can we talk about this later? And she's like, no, we want to talk. Or if she
Her
says that to
ego.
me, I'm like, hey, no, I want to bust this out right now.
That's your ego
Yes.
saying it.
That
I
has
want to
changed my
dominate. So
marriage.
egos want to dominate.
It's changed my marriage, man, to be able to say that. And then the other person recognize, okay, he's trying to disengage, come back in 10 minutes, an hour, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
It's just so powerful, man.
Yeah.
I love it.
Wow. And of course, you learn, you have to practice this because it doesn't work perfectly the first time.
Yeah.
And at first you don't recognize it. And you're thinking to yourself, your ego's engaged.
Not mine.
No, it's not my ego. It's your ego. And who's saying your ego's engaged?
Right.
My ego is.
Yeah.
And the worst thing you can say to somebody who, if you don't want their ego to engage, don't say your ego's
Yeah.
engaged. Because if it's not, it will be. And if it already is,
It's
then
gonna
it's going to be even
10x.
worse.
Yeah.
And so you say, my ego's engaged. Honey, my
That-
ego's engaged right now. Can we take a little
Yeah.
break?
Not your ego. My ego. I like that.
My
Okay.
ego's engaged right now. Can we take a little break? Doesn't matter if theirs is or not. You're taking a break either way.
Yeah.
And during that break is when you take a breath, you walk into the other room, and you do the things that put ego to sleep. You say, everything's okay. I'm safe. I don't have to win.
That I'm safe. I'm okay. That's at least for me, that changed my life. And
Yeah.
this is like I feel like a kid in a candy store right now, because we've all gone over this, but this was, I mean, how long ago did we coach? Years ago.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm going through a
3,
crash
4
course. It's
years.
really exciting. So you're saying these words that stood out to me, like reminding myself, I'm okay. I'm enough. I'm good enough. All those little,
Right.
words of affirmation.
Well, and Cam, it's so important as you're saying this list of what triggers ego. Anytime you are in a state of fear, your ego's engaged. And so when you take your break, you stop and think about, what am I afraid of here? Usually we're afraid that we're not going to get something that we think we need,
Okay.
or that we're going to get something that's going to hurt us, that we
us.
won't be able to handle it.
Yeah.
And so part one is we use this word attachment. Attachment is basically believing you need something. But tell me what you need. Do you remember?
Food, water, and air.
Yeah. And shelter. Food,
And
shelter,
shelter.
water, oxygen. That's all you need.
Which
so
I
if
was
you
really
ever,
pissed off when you first told me that, because I was like, I don't need the Lambo. I don't need the helicopter. What do you mean, man? Come on.
exactly. It feels like I need these things, but you really don't. You want them.
Yeah.
And you may want them very badly, but there's a difference between need and want. And the most important difference is this. Your subconscious doesn't know anything. It only knows what you tell it. If you say to your subconscious, I need this, it will do what it was programmed to do to get you what you need.
Right.
What you need, food, shelter, water, and oxygen, it will trigger your amygdala, fight or flight. And you will go into a whole different level. Just like if you could say, I would never kill anybody. If I held you underwater
Right.
for 5 or 6 minutes and you were starting to black out and you had a gun or a knife in your hand, I'm toast.
I'm toast.
There's no way you're not going to take advantage of that, because your subconscious will take over, your ego will take over, your amygdala will take over, and fight or flight, you'll do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happens to us when I say I need something that I don't really need. I go overboard. My ego goes, oh no, it
We gotta
panics.
get it,
I
yeah.
need this. And the amygdala starts to fire up, and we start to behave in manners that are not showing us off at our best. And we
To
start
say.
behaving irrationally, and so on and so forth. So I'm always reminding people, if your ego's engaged, stop and ask yourself, what story
that yeah.
have I told myself?
That I
What is
need?
it that I'm thinking that I need? And
That's
then
a
you say,
good-
I don't need that.
I love that.
I
man.
don't need
that.
that.
Alone, yeah. I love that.
Yeah, I'd like it, but I don't need it. Whew, I'll be okay either way, right? And of course, the other thing is the opposite of that, to think something terrible is going to happen. And when you're thinking, oh no, they're going to do something terrible, is being able to say, I can handle this.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, I can handle this.
Well,
I'll
that's
be
why I
okay.
want to lead into my next principle.
Yeah.
That's perfect, because this is a principle that you introduced to me, but I didn't become a believer in it until I had this huge moment in my life. And that is the principle, everything works out.
Yeah.
You taught me this, I think, for almost a year.
That's why
And I
need a year
didn't
to coach.
believe you.
It takes a year to get it.
And I was laughing last night thinking about this. I'm like, I think I coached with him for 2 years. I'm a lot slower than most.
You were just more fun to work with, so we kept going.
He's so nice, man. But this principle of everything works out, I think it might be one of the best principles to understand as a business owner, because as a business owner, there's a lot of things are on your plate. A lot of fires happen. Yeah. Well, you were teaching this for a year. I think I understood the basics, but you have to go through something. I went through, an investor backing out. I literally, I don't cry that much. I called you that day, literally in tears, saying, Mark, I need your help, man.
It was the end of the world for you.
I literally just lost my life. Like, everything's over.
It was the end of the world.
I'm done. And you just, of course, very calmly, hey, can't remember this principle we've been talking about? Everything works out. And at first, I'm sure my ego was like, screw you, man. It's not that simple. Sorry, Mark, I'm not explaining correctly. This investor just backed out. All my money.
You don't get it.
And you just kept going. So again, we spent a year on this. I'm asking you to talk about it in 5 to 10 minutes.
Sure.
What could you tell people that are listening to, start with everything works out?
Yeah, I'm so happy you brought that one up. This is fun, Cam. It's fun to just you see who you have become. Oh, you got to remember this. I mean, almost everybody. You ask somebody, especially a highly successful businessman, you say, "What's the greatest thing you ever did? What's the greatest thing you ever accomplished?" Without exception, it'll be something outside of themselves. It'll be the empire I built, the business I built. It could be their family. It could be anything. But the last thing they will ever say is me. I'm my greatest accomplishment. Yeah. And you deserve to say that because you are remarkable. You've come so far. You've just from the time we started coaching, that guy doesn't exist anymore. No, and it's not just because of my coaching. It's because, remember when we started coaching, I said, you bring the commitment, I'll bring the tools. Right. I'll guarantee you the results. Yeah. But that's only if you're fully committed. Well, your level of commitment is off the charts. Right. And you've taken that to such a level. I mean, you've become this. I mean, we're sitting here right now because of who you've become. You're now thinking, I can't go to my grave being the only one who knows this stuff. I got to share this. Yeah. And so.
Well, thank you for that.
That worked out. So our coaching worked out. Right. Yeah. And as you may recall, the best coaching sessions weren't the ones where you'd sit down, I'd say, how is everything? You'd say, it's all good. Everything's fine. Right. Then I go to my list of things. Okay, we'll talk about ego today, or we'll talk about this. I've got enough to talk about for obviously several years, but I'd rather only go through a third of it and have that third be something that really matters to you. Yep. Our best sessions were when you came in crying, when you came in angry, frustrated, upset, depressed, like I've got problems. And I'd say, this is awesome.
Yeah, I'd be so mad at you.
Yes, I know. It's like, you just don't get me. Yeah, I do. Trust me. Yeah. You're stuck with me for a year. And so in every one of those cases, it was in using the principles to help you overcome or address this goal you wanted to accomplish or this catastrophe you wanted to overcome. It gave us something, because you can't grow in a vacuum. It gave us something to apply it to. Yeah. And so once again, even though you were having a hard time grasping it, everything was always working out all along the way. Every one of your problems worked out right off the bat because it gave us something to work on. Yeah. It gave us a foundation or a backdrop to learn the next lesson. Yeah. And so, of course, I not only knew everything would work out, but I was thrilled with your challenges and issues. And that's more of the reason why we eventually concluded our coaching was you were running out of horrible challenges that you couldn't figure out on your own. Yeah. It got to a point where you were basically saying, well, Mark, you're in my head now. I don't need to call you because I already know exactly what you're going to say. Yeah. And so now I'm just,
even though I don't love it, I know what he's going to say.
Yeah. Which, remember, of course, I'd say my job's not to tell you what you want to hear. You can get your employees to do that. My job's to tell you what you need to hear.
Right.
And that's not always going to be fun. Of course, I wasn't going to be a jerk about it.
Yeah.
So I would try to say it nicely, but your ego would get engaged sometimes. And I'd say, okay, all that matters right now is that we disengage your ego because we can't get any further while it's engaged. So with all that said, everything always working out. It's hard to believe at first. What do you mean it doesn't work? It works out. I can think of lots of things. I go, really? Wait a minute. I want you to make a list of the 10 or 20 things that you're the most proud of.
Yeah.
10 or 20 things that you are the most excited about. The things that are the most wonderful things about you and the things you're most proud of. Now, I want you to go back and figure out where all this started. And almost without exception, it will be because you ran into a disaster, and in the process of overcoming that, whether it was an event that was horrible or it was a life that was horrible, a lifestyle could be, somebody who's, going through a terrible divorce. It could be somebody who is, just filed bankruptcy,
Yeah.
or, there's countless things that can go wrong in our lives. But almost without exception, if you don't fall victim and let them run you over and then go hide in a corner for the rest of your life, if you actually get back up and get on with your life, whether it happens the next day or it happens in 2 or 3 years from now, there will come a point where you'll look back at it and you'll say, all these things happened because of that.
Yeah. And
the best things about me are because I became this person in an effort to overcome this.
Yeah.
Because these things were causing me issues. And by the time I addressed them and overcame them, I became this. Or in my business, right? What happened to you with losing the investors? It caused you to step back and look at your life.
Yeah.
And look at the businesses, look at the direction they were going in, figuring out all sorts of things. And look where you are now.
Yeah.
It wasn't the end of the world. It wasn't the end of your life. It wasn't the end of your business. You didn't go bankrupt. You ended up being this guy.
I remember questioning you. Okay, if my dad just died and I'm thinking I'll never see him again. I remember you kind of having your rebuttal even to that everything works out.
Everything. See, that's where we have to add the words, everything always works out, just not necessarily the way you planned. Now, that's something we have to get used to, is when we get attached to an outcome, once again, attached. Now that means that I believe I need things to turn out this way. That's an outcome. Things need to turn out this way.
Man.
Now I'm attached. Now that's going to trigger fear, because what if it doesn't happen? That's going to trigger ego. And now ego is going to try to make sure this happens. And ego, like I said, sucks. It's not a strategist. It's raw, and it doesn't make very good decisions. So imagine if you said, instead of, I need this to turn out this way, what
Right.
you said was, here's the outcome that I'm shooting for. However, I'm aware that there are an infinite number of outcomes that could be even better and an infinite number that could be worse.
Yeah.
This is just the one I've come up with. And I could be wrong.
I was waiting for that.
And at that point, you're able to say, but it's the best idea I have so far, so I'm heading in that direction.
Yeah.
With the understanding that I could be wrong. And so the perfect physical example is, if you've ever seen a horse, like in the old days they had the blinders on.
Yeah.
And blinders are there to keep the horse from looking at other things that might distract them. It forces them to look only straight ahead, which is fine if all you do is walk straight ahead,
Yeah.
which is not life.
Right.
Every time, because you can't see anything else, every time you are attached to a specific outcome, you just put blinders on yourself. You put them on. Now you can't see any other possibilities. And
Well,
so you've just now blinded yourself. And what if there were 100 other ideas or possibilities that are even better?
Yeah.
So I want to finish with this point.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
shut up. and so think about the difference between a roadblock and a detour. What's the
Yeah.
difference?
I mean, you can't go through, and a detour is taking you a different
Exactly. A roadblock says, stop, you're done. You can't go this way. You're done. A detour says, you can't go this way, but you're not done.
Yeah.
You can take another route. We need to stop seeing challenges in our lives as roadblocks. Stop thinking this has stopped me. Oh no, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
But rather look at all of them as nothing more than a detour, nothing more than God's way of saying, you're so fixed on this one road that you're missing all of the other possibilities. So step back and consider, what if there's something out there far better? A roadblock. I was on my way up to Green Bay, and they shut the freeway down. And I had my kids.
Yeah.
And I said, well, shoot. And they gave us some options. Long story short, we go up this road called Door County. It's in Wisconsin, and it goes along all the way up Lake Michigan. And it's all Amish country. They're horse and buggies and roadside, homemade,
Stores
cherries, honeys, pies, pickles.
You're just having a day.
Oh my gosh, we had so much fun that on the way home,
You took that same route.
my kids said, can we go that way too? Can we go that way home? It was twice as long to get there. And they still said, can we go that route again?
I love it.
I'd have never taken Door County because it's twice as long.
Right.
So what if you looked at your whole life like that?
Well, it makes me want
Everything's an opportunity.
It makes me, and so maybe this could be, I'm going to take advantage of this coaching session really fast.
Sure.
I have this 5-year plan for Green Mango.
Yeah.
$50 million in revenue.
Yes.
What would you say to that?
I'd
I'm
say,
I'm fixated on that.
okay, I would say every goal doubles as a limitation. What does that mean?
You're saying every goal that I double.
Every goal that we set,
Any goal, whether it's 5 years, 2 years,
any goal
1
you
year.
set doubles as a limitation. What do I mean by that?
Don't set limitations on yourself. So why 50? Why not 75? Why not just do your best
Yeah.
and control what you can each year and in 5
Exactly.
years? But
Yeah.
I feel like if you don't have this goal,
Right?
what do you work towards? Like,
Oh my
what-
gosh.
50 or bust, or not 50. Like, don't have the mentality 50 or bust, but
Right.
my goal is 50.
So
if
you
we get to
say-
60,
So we are currently heading toward a $50 million
revenue.
Is this revenue?
Yeah.
We are heading toward a $50 million revenue share or revenue. However, $100 million is possible. We'll see what happens. What we do know is this: we're going to do everything in our power to ensure at least $50 million, knowing that we cannot control the world around us.
Mm-hmm.
This is all I can control. So I'm going to figure out what I need to do.
And that's where the implementations for each manager, whoever
Exactly.
plays a key into getting that
Exactly.
50 is bought in.
Exactly. And then each of you sit down. What do you need to do
Yeah.
in your department? And what are your standards? And what are you setting? And so on. What are your measurables, et cetera, et cetera? And you set it all up, always with the idea that in the end, $50 million is nothing more than a direction.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It is not going to define you. It's just a direction, and we have to have direction.
Yep.
But if you get too attached to it,
Then when
well,
it
you
does
may
or
miss the
doesn't.
$70 million opportunity that was sitting right next to it.
I love it. Well, is there anything else? Because I want to go on to the next thing, which is bright train, dark train.
Oh, yeah,
But is there anything
sure.
else you want to talk about on that subject?
Just when it comes to this acceptance that everything always works out, I don't want folks thinking that it always works out immediately. I want you to get that it can take some time,
Yeah.
but fear, so many people's lives are dominated by fear.
Yeah.
And when people ask me, what is the number one cure for fear that you can think of, Mark? And I say, well, don't think of it as like you can cure fear, because fear does serve a purpose. Just like ego, it's never going away. Well, fear is always going to be there to some degree. Keeps you from jumping out of airplanes without your parachute. But when you come to believe that everything always works out, and you believe it, you know it's going to work out, then fear just disappears. It's like feeding ego. Fear is like, well, then what am I afraid of?
Yeah.
If I know it's going to work out, what am I afraid of? So it's not going to work out exactly the way I planned, but is that a bad thing?
Yeah.
It could work out better than I planned. We think about worst case scenario, but what about best case?
Yeah. I love that.
So it's like, yeah, but there's so many possibilities. And so adopting this is critical if you ever want to have any kind of control over fear in your life. And so I tell everybody, keep an EWO journal. EWO, everything always works out. Make a list of all the things in your life that you thought at the time were not working out, were a disaster, were problematic, a horrible challenge, and so on. And then write down how it worked out.
Yeah.
And the reason is because I want you to believe it. See, if you don't believe that it works out, you're not going to apply this lesson to your life. And so how do I do that? I convince you by having you prove it to yourself. See, we see what we're looking for. That's Goethe. Look for proof that everything always works out, and you'll find plenty of it.
Yeah.
And then it's easier for you to buy into this.
I'm so glad you said that, because obviously that was a challenge that you gave me. And as I would write it down and go back on the notes, is like when it happened, whether 6 months later or a year later. Yeah, he was right. It did work out. And even if it didn't work out how I wanted, it still wasn't as bad as I imagined. And that's the biggest thing for me.
Yeah. Which is one of the most important things when teaching self-confidence. I mean, you're a dad. Everybody is, especially dads, they want to teach their boys self-confident. They pull them out there on the baseball field and show them how to hit home runs. Boom, boom, boom. And they believe, and lots of people believe of both genders, that the best way to become self-confident is to get really, really, really good.
Yeah.
And really good people are really self-confident, but that's not actually how it works. No matter how good you are, is there somebody better?
Yeah.
Somebody who could kick your butt. You want to play pickleball, you get to 3-point, there's a 3-5 and kick your ass. There's a 3-4. There's a 4.0 that'll really make you want to suck your thumb and cry for mommy. There's a 5.0 that you'll just stand there and watch the balls go by because you can't even get to them.
Right.
So there's always somebody better. You'll never be so good that you know that you are the GOAT. There's a reason they use the word the GOAT. By the way, you remind me of him. Anybody ever told you that?
Yeah.
You look so much like him sometimes it just freaks me out. But how many GOATs are there? There's like, one GOAT in each category of life. Well, I'm not going to let my happiness depend on being the greatest of all time at anything. Because the odds out of 8 billion people are pretty slim.
I love that.
Right? So you teach confidence by teaching your kids, for starters, that you can strike out and survive.
Yeah.
See, confidence is knowing that no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. I can handle it. Teach that to your kids. And in the process, learn it for yourself.
Yeah.
I can handle it. Whatever comes along, I can handle it. That's self-confidence. I don't have to be the best. I just need to know that I can handle it, whatever it is.
Yeah, I love that. When you came in today, I said, "How are you?" And you said, "I'm a 10." And I'm sure Lexi's, behind the cameras wondering, like, what are they talking about?
Isn't he full of himself? He thinks he's a 10.
Well, she probably doesn't even know what we're talking about at 10. So you've introduced this principle of essentially a scale of analyzing where you're at. Am I a 1? Am I a 10? And you refer to it as a bright train and dark train. I want you to go into that for a couple minutes.
Sure. So we'll call it a state, right? So what state are you in? Are you in a dark place? Are you feeling pessimistic, cynical? Are you unhappy? Are you depressed? Are you angry? Are you sad? These would all be lower numbers, right? So you might say, I'm at a 3. That means you're having a pretty bad day. If you're at a 10, that means, now look at the opposite, right? How do you feel? I'm happy. I'm excited. I feel confident. You're raring to go. The ultimate would be to get to a 10. And so we talk about how to actually take control of the state you're in. Your mental state, because you at a 3, you ever been at a 3?
Many times.
Versus you at a 10, which one of those guys do you want running this company?
Yeah.
Which one of those guys do you want running your family?
Right.
Raising your children? There's no question that when we get to an 8, 9, or a 10, that's the best of us, being our best, feeling our best. And it's all a state. And a state is simply... So we'll start with this statement, which is, we live in the mind. This is where your life is. We live in the mind. There's stuff around us, but you and I are having a different experience right now.
I know.
Even though we're sitting in the same room doing the same thing, we're having a totally different experience. Your perceptions and programs are interpreting all of this in one way, mine in a different way. We have different ideas, different agenda, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
We are not sharing the identical reality. And what I teach is that reality is nothing more than the thoughts and stories that you believe. You believe it, that's your reality. There is a physical reality out there, an objective physical reality, but we can't see it. We can only see our version of it because our brain cannot accept things at face value. Everything we look at is through a filter. But we can change the filter.
Yeah.
But this dark train, bright train was a way for me to teach about these filters. You can call it a mindset.
Yeah.
Right? In the end, it's how are you seeing the world? To give you a physical example, if you remember before cell phones, I mean, look at the cameras where they change the lens.
Yeah.
You know, there's the body of the camera, and then there are the lenses. Well, if you were to look at something through the body without a lens, you can't see anything. It's just a blur.
Yeah.
That's what reality looks like to us without a lens. We can't make sense of it until our brain steps in. We put on a lens and says, oh, this is good. This is bad. This is okay. It's not okay. This is what I want. This isn't what I want.
Yeah.
And so if you imagine this lens, you're thinking that whatever it is you're looking at or observing in the real world, that you're just seeing what is. But that's not how it works. You take a lens, and let's take a spider. Now, let's pretend you have arachnophobia. And I look at that spider through a zoom lens, through a close-up lens, and it's this big.
Right.
And I'm looking at it. How am I going to feel looking at that spider? It's a live spider. I'm looking at it through that lens, and it's crawling around, getting ready to jump.
Right.
And it looks like it's 1 inch from my face. What's going to happen? Yeah,
pull
I'm
back.
going to be jumping, anxiety, my heart's pumping, all this stuff's going on. And I'm thinking this is how I should respond to that spider.
Right.
But I changed the lens and I put in a fisheye wide angle lens. That spider is a tiny little black dot that looks 30 feet away. How am I going to react to
Yeah.
it?
You're calm,
I'm like,
relaxed.
whatever. I don't even know what it is. Oh, teeny spider, just leave it be. It's fine. And I think I'm reacting exactly how I should be to that spider that is 30 feet away and only this big.
Yeah.
Now, the objective reality is it's actually this big and it's 3 feet away.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't see objective reality. I can only see my version of it.
Right.
The whole world is absolutely positive that whatever they see in their lens is what it is.
Yep.
They don't think for a moment that it's the lens.
Yeah.
And obviously, as you know, it takes some time recognizing this is not what is, this is just how it is for me right now at this moment.
Yeah.
And as you know, what is the
Which
question?
is why
you're asking?
everyone sees and has a different experience.
It's how you
as
can
we
have two
sit here.
people in the same room having an argument about two opposite things and be absolutely positive that they're each right.
correct. Yep.
Is because they're just looking through different lenses.
Yeah.
And until you recognize you're looking through different lenses, how in the world are you going to communicate?
Well, that's why I talk about how important it is to put written agreements out or have manager manuals, because even though you're
Yes.
sitting here talking to the person and you think they're understanding, they're hearing it. I love it in their lens.
Yes.
So the paper, I don't think it always solves it 100%, but I feel like it's a step in the right
Oh,
direction.
it's so much better to at least be able to say, okay, we've all looked at this, your lawyers, everybody's looked at it, and we can all agree that the spider is 3 feet away and this big.
Yep.
What's happened is we're all looking through the same lens now.
Yeah.
So chances are you're going to be
We
fine.
can see it the same way.
Yeah.
I love it.
So that's what you're doing with these agreements and spelling things out and getting them to say back what they just heard, is you're doing the best you can to get everybody looking through the same lens.
And I got to teach the lens in the manager meeting. It's so powerful.
Yeah. And it's a great precursor to the bright train, dark train. Because you notice I don't teach that on the first day.
Yeah.
I have to lead you up to it, which is why I just thought I better make sure first they know a little about the nature of reality and about these lenses. And so now I'll go ahead and tell you
Okay.
the story. So I was just looking for a way to help people understand the nature of reality
Mm-hmm.
and the power they have over it and where we live our lives for the most part. And so I said, so picture two train tracks. Let's say, so you've gone to Portland, Maine. Have you ever seen pictures of Portland, Maine in the fall? You know, just
Yeah.
a million
Huge
colors
leaves,
of
yeah.
trees and so on and so forth. And so there's an observation platform with a train station with an observation platform where people can sit and wait for their train and stuff. And then there's these two tracks that run side by side, and they go off into the mountains and through the countryside. And you want to go on a trip, which is basically what your day looks like. Okay?
Right.
So today I'm going to get on the train and I'm going to go through the countryside. But there's something interesting going on that nobody's aware of, and that's that there's two different kinds of trains. One of these trains is one of those dark, black, charcoal black behemoths that you'd see in the 1800s with black smoke billowing out of it. It's filthy, and there's
Yeah.
that train. And then the other one is one of these magnetic, super hyper
Supersonics.
contemporary. Yeah. And it's sleek and it's beautiful and it's like chrome and it's shiny and it's gorgeous. And so which of those trains you want to get on?
Right.
You want to get on the beautiful train, the shiny, gorgeous train. And so everybody thinks that they're getting on that train. The problem is you get on the train in the pitch black, so you don't know which train you're getting on. The lights aren't on. They haven't turned them on at the train station yet, but you're sure you're getting on the right train. So you get on the train. Well, there's another challenge. The trains are identical on the inside. So when you're on the train, you don't know which one you're on. You can't tell. They look the same. I'm sure I'm on the right train. I'm on, so dark train, bright train. Well, I'm sure I'm on the bright train. And on the bright train, you're driving along, going through you look out the window. The window has a lens. All the windows have a lens on them. And what the lens does is it shows you only the good stuff. It's all you can see through this particular window because you're on the bright train. And so you see the beautiful colors of fall.
Yeah.
It lets in the air. You can smell the colors of fall. You can smell you see the apples dropping from the trees. You're thinking about apple cider and hot cocoa and October. You're thinking of Halloween and Thanksgiving and this is such a great season and everything's wonderful. And you're sure that it's because that's just the way things are. That's what the world looks like through the bright train. Who wouldn't want to be on the bright train, right?
Yeah.
Truth is, you're not seeing the world the way it really is. Only the people on the observation platform can see the world the way it really is because they're not looking through a lens. They're just up there, just looking at the facts. There's a black train there and there's a shiny train there and there's a bunch of mountains. Not any opinions.
Yeah.
You'd think, well, why don't we just stay on the observation? Because you can't stay in observation. Your brain insists on putting on lenses. It's not going to let you stay there. But you can go there for moments when I'm coaching. Total observation. Yeah. I'm just taking in information, feedback. Give me feedback so I can give you feedback. And I'm just hearing it. And I refuse to get on a train because I don't want to color your stuff.
Yeah.
I don't want to give it any meaning. So now we jump over to the dark train. It's got the opposite lenses on the windows. You're on the train and you look out the window. And you don't see all this wonderful stuff. You don't see the beautiful leaves. What you see is, I know why the leaves have all turned colors. You know why leaves turn colors? Because they're dead. They no longer have, the photosynthesis is no longer taking place. It's no longer converting all this wonderful sunlight into this chlorophyll and greenery. It's stopped working.
No.
And so without chlorophyll, the leaves just turn a brown or yellow or beautiful red and crimson and so on. But it's basically just dead leaves. And so you're seeing all this death everywhere.
Yeah.
And of course, what happens after the leaves die? What do?
They fall.
And what do trees look like without leaves? A bunch of ugly sticks.
Right.
And what follows the death of these trees? Why did the leaves die, by the way? You know why?
Because you said they weren't getting any more nurture water.
Right. And it's because the ground temperature changed.
Frozen. Yeah.
And the trees said, it's getting cold. I cannot support these leaves through the winter. There won't be enough sunlight. There won't be enough nourishment. I can't support them. I'm going to have to just drop them all and go into hibernation for the next 4 to 6 months.
Yeah.
I'm just going to hibernate because I can't. I'll die otherwise.
Yeah.
And so it's getting cold. So you're looking out the window of the dark train. The song, The California Dreaming, all the leaves are brown and the sky is gray, blah, blah, blah. It's, So what is happening in the winter, especially in the Northwest or the Northeast? Right. Oh my gosh, I won't see the sun for another 6 months. It's going to be, and it gets dark at 3 in the afternoon. It doesn't get light until 10 in the morning. It's going to be black and dreary and dark. And even when it's daytime, it's going to be gray. It's going to be cold. I'm going to be shoveling. And now they start projecting. Next thing you know, it's going to be snowing. I'm going to be shoveling 10 feet of snow. I keep scraping my windows and on it goes. So all the negative side of winter, right? So here's the crazy part. It doesn't occur to you, I'm just on the dark train. It's not horrible. I'm just on the dark train. So I'm going to try to fix the world around me. I can't glue the leaves back onto the trees, but I guess maybe, honey, we're going to have to sell the house and move.
Yeah.
We're going to have to do this and this and that. We're going to have to I got to quit my job and get a better job so I can afford to hire somebody to come out and plow the driveway and shovel the snow.
Right.
And you're trying to fix it
Everything. Yep.
by fixing the world around you. That's what we're all doing. Every time we see a problem, we think that the solution is by fixing the stuff out there. It doesn't occur to us, wait a minute. First of all, let's check here. Since I live in the mind, chances are, if I can solve it up here, if I can simply change the way I view this thing, that'll be a hell of a lot faster and easier and probably more effective.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, it's the only thing I can control anyhow, is what's going on up here. I can try to fix the stuff around me and I have it not work.
Yeah.
I fix it and then it breaks the next day. So, no matter how hard I try, I can never fix everything always all the time except this.
Yep.
And so the idea of the bright train and dark train is to be able to say, recognize when your ego's engaged. By the way, the ego drives the train.
Yeah.
Recognize when your ego's engaged. Recognize when you're on the dark train and say, I'm just on the dark train. Take a breath and decide I need to get off the dark train, which, by the way, these are all things that you can also do to help others off the dark train.
Yeah.
And to help others when their ego's engaged.
Yeah.
Somebody walks in and they're all, I did that. And they're taking all the credit. And, if it weren't for me, this whole deal would have fallen through. And I'm the one who made this happen. And I did that. That's just their ego.
Yeah.
You want to know how to turn that off? Is say, yeah, you're right. I don't know what we'd have done without you. You are amazing.
Feed the dog.
We're going to clap when you walk in the room, baby. We want everybody to know you are the guy. You do that and watch him. He'll suddenly go, oh, no, it wasn't all me. No, wait. No, this was a team effort. His ego will instantly go to sleep.
Yeah.
And you'll have him back in the room going, no, I'm sorry, guys. I shouldn't have taken all that. That was silly of me, blah, blah, blah. So on the dark train, what we do is we ask ourselves, what's my story? Because my reality is that that life sucks right now, that the world is a disaster. So I clearly believe a story that's making me feel this way. And I love to use the question, does this serve me? Serve me means, the one thing we all want to love our life.
Yeah.
That includes our business life. We want to love our life. Does this help me? Is this helping me love my life?
Yeah.
Thinking these thoughts, feeling this way, seeing the world in this light. No, it's making me miserable. So it doesn't serve me.
Yeah.
Got it. So these stories that I believe don't serve me. So I'm going to replace them. By the way, you can't just turn off the story. You can't turn off a belief. You have to replace it. So I'm going to replace it with stories that make me feel better. And I'm going to look for proof that these new stories are true so that I can believe in them. And if you look for the proof, you'll find it. And so, is it possible that I could be wrong? Is it possible it's not the worst thing that ever happened? Is it possible it's the best thing that ever happened? Is that possible that the opposite of this could also be true? And of course, at some point you start realizing, of course it is. But people immediately, as I'm telling them this, they say, so you're just saying, just take it and just write a different story? And well, you're telling me to live in a fantasy land, it's fantasy world. And my answer, of course, is you already do.
Yeah.
We all do. See, your version of reality is a fantasy.
Yeah.
It's your fantasy. The difference is you don't know it's a fantasy.
Yeah.
All I'm doing is telling you it's a fantasy. So you can say, well, then if my whole life is a fantasy, then why don't I take control of it? Like if I were a movie writer, obviously I've been a filmmaker for many, many years. If I'm watching a movie I don't like and somebody walks in and says, well, write a different movie, I would be like all over that.
Yeah.
Well, sure. I don't like horror slasher movies.
Yeah.
I like comedies.
Yeah.
So what do you think for every apocalyptic zombie movie that has ever been produced, there's been one or two that were comedies.
Yeah.
Where people, so you can take a zombie and go, zombies are scary, zombies are bad, dark train. Zombies are bad and scary. From the bright train, no, they're hilarious.
Yeah.
All I did was say,
I
changed the story that all zombies are bad to, no, zombies are funny. And now I'm going to look for proof of it. Well, for starters, most zombies walk. Why are they so slow?
Yeah.
What are you afraid of? You can walk backwards faster than they can run. What is the big problem? They're slow. They're not very intelligent. Blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
And so, of course, some of the I've seen some hilarious movies with, with Shaun of the Dead that are about zombies. And it's a perfect example because you'd immediately think, oh, zombies, bad.
Yeah.
No,
zombies.
nothing is good nor bad. Shakespeare wrote this. Nothing is good nor bad, but thinking makes it so. It was his way of saying countless years ago, it's just what is until you decide that it's good or bad. Is rain good or bad?
Thinking makes it so.
Yeah, it depends. Are you a farmer who's got a bunch of crops that haven't had any water in 2 months?
Right.
Or are you having a wedding in your backyard and you forgot to order the tents? Rain is just rain. It's not good or bad until you give it a value. What value do you give it? Depends on the lens that you put in place. A lens then becomes another word for mindset.
I love it, man.
So what are your mindsets? Go ahead. By the way, just to give it a perfect example, because it kind of ties everything we've said together. When we were talking earlier about catastrophes and about all these terrible things happening, and so being a victim mindset would be, everything that, oh, this is a disaster, this is terrible. Now look at Elon Musk, who I would love to coach. He's on my bucket list. I wouldn't want to trade places with Elon Musk.
Right.
And yet, he's got a couple of things down.
Yeah.
Elon Musk has 2 mindsets that are behind virtually almost 100% of his success. He has a limitless mindset. Right. He absolutely believes that everything is possible. So he looks at the world through his limitless lens. Nothing is impossible.
Yeah.
And he has an opportunity mindset. So everything that happens, he looks at it and says, there's an opportunity here. I just need to find it. Whoever finds the opportunity makes all the money.
Right.
Everybody else is going, oh no, this is a disaster. What are we going to do? And he's going, disaster, my butt. The person who solves the disaster is going to get rich.
Yep.
So he cannot see a problem the way we see problems. I teach that I don't have any problems because I have an opportunity mindset. I literally have permanently placed the opportunity mindset as a permanent fixture of my life. Yeah. You can have more than one lens, more than one mindset. And so how do I have any problems? It's just something that happened until I give it a name. And my name is opportunity. Go ahead.
I was just laughing because one time I called you and you just recently got in a car accident. And you're like, admittedly, I'm like, how are you? And you're like, admittedly, I'm at a 7, but I'm going to get it back up to a 9 in the next 20 minutes. I was just like, that's just crazy. He's so in tune with where he's at, what train he's on, how he's thinking. And like, it's taken years and years of practice. It's not something that comes easy. It certainly hasn't come for me. And obviously I have a lot of ways to grow and room to grow.
Well, yeah, I mean, as we always will, the more I know how little I know. By the way, there's a word for it. It's called metacognition. Metacognition is being aware of your awareness.
Yeah.
It's thinking about your thoughts. It's noticing what you notice, focusing on what you focus on. And when it becomes something that you do automatically, then I call it quantum consciousness.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm obviously teaching you, is to get to a point where you no longer go through life being a victim of your circumstances, but rather simply being aware of your circumstances and choosing to respond to them in any way that best serves you.
Yeah.
Which changes everything.
You touched on it a little bit, but I don't know if the listeners really understood. You talk about and you teach a principle about your self-talk becomes your belief. And correct me if I get it wrong, but self-talk becomes your belief becomes your reality, and then your reality, you look for, belief and proof in that reality.
Right.
Did I miss reality? One? Yeah. The second one's reality?
Yeah, the second
What
reality.
Is it? Because that's so important for people to really understand that it all starts with the words that you speak.
Yeah. And actually the very first item I put out is focus. What are you focused on? Think of it this way. Are you focused on what's good or what's bad? What's right or what's wrong?
Okay.
So we start with focus because the focus is going to determine which direction it goes in. It's either going to be a positive focus or a negative focus. Look at cynics. Starts right off with a negative focus.
Yeah.
And so, when I say that, because the next thing is your self-talk. Self-talk is basically something that is like said with 1 word, 2, 3 words, whatever. I'm an idiot. I suck. That's self-talk. Yeah. It's not a fully blown concept. It's not a whole sentence. It's not a story. It's just a couple of words. So, I'm bad.
Yeah.
Or that's awesome. It's just quick little identifiers. So we're constantly labeling ourselves, others, the
in
world.
that category or whatever it is.
Yeah. So
Okay.
the label is what we call self-talk. It's
Okay.
just the label I've given something. So I'm either going to give it a positive label or a negative label. And that label is going to be in the form of a few simple words. If we leave it there, then those words will start to gather more momentum. The words grow. I suck. I suck at math, let's say. I suck at math because, now it's going to turn into a story, because nobody in our family is good at math.
Yeah.
We're all idiots when it comes to that. That's why nobody in our family has ever been good in science or is this or that. That's why nobody's ever become doctors, because they have to have math to do this. And so I can only choose from this kind of a career. It has to be in the creative areas because
Right.
I suck at math, and that's going to mean that I can't do anything. And it's hereditary, so there's nothing I can do about it. That's a story.
Yep.
And that's what your self-talk turns into. Now that I have this story, the nature of reality is we don't want reality to be misty and out of focus and nebulous. We want it to be something we can grab onto, something solid. And so
Is that your ego?
Well, our ego jumps in at this point.
Okay.
Because the ego is now buying into this story. Saying, well, then, so this is the story. So because ego needs to be right. So my story needs to be true and accurate and correct. So it starts looking for proof. You ever been in an argument? Well, I'm not the only one who feels that way. So-and-so said the same thing about you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
That's validating our position, our story. We want our story to be validated. So we'll say, so-and-so said it, and I read this, I read this and that. Of course, when people say,
put facts in or
whether they exist or not.
Yeah.
I read something somewhere, or they say, who are they? I don't know, but they say this.
Yeah.
And
Who are they?
Yeah. So we're looking to validate our story. And so and this is the quote, Goethe, we see what we're looking for. You can say, we hear what we're listening for. We know that, we see what we're looking for. And it's true.
Yeah.
You can have a person standing in front of you. And if you've been told this person is a thief, a mass murderer, is evil, is all this sort of blah, 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 right?
Right.
And you've got your kid in the room. Are you going to get up and leave that kid in the room with this guy?
No.
He hasn't done anything. He's just standing there.
Just chilling.
Or you've been told this is Jesus Christ has come back to earth.
Right.
Are you going to have a problem leaving your kid with him?
No problem.
No. He's just a guy standing there.
Yep.
Your behavior is going to be dictated not by him, but by your story.
Yep.
If you look for proof that this guy's evil, and he reaches out and hands that kid a cookie, you're like, what are you doing? You didn't ask for permission to do that. My kid is on a restricted diet. We don't give him sugar. How do I know that cookie's not poisonous, right? Because you're on a negative feed, in a negative state, you're on the dark train. And so he just gave that cookie to the kid, and told you. Irresponsible, thoughtless, careless, disrespectful.
Yeah. Right.
And he's trying to hurt my kid.
Yep.
And he did all that stuff because he didn't ask me for permission. Now Jesus Christ hands him a cookie, and how's that going to go?
Thank you. You're so kind.
Jesus Christ gave my kid a cookie. Don't eat it. Would you mind autographing that cookie for us? And it's like boom, 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 right?
Yeah.
Now you've got your proof. See, Jesus is a good guy. First thing he did was give my kid a cookie. I was right about him.
That's right.
Now that you have proof, validated your story, now you believe it.
Yep.
Because that's what the proof does. It creates your belief. And we do what we believe. You'll crash an airplane into the Twin Towers if you believe that you're saving the world by doing it.
Right.
You'll commit suicide, give up your life and to save the world if you actually believed it. That's why they did it, because they believed what they were doing was right. So once you believe it, now it changes everything you do. Everything you think, feel, and do is going to be based on that story that you believe.
Then it's just a full circle, and you just keep
which is
going back.
yes. And so since it's now changed your behavior, it's going to change the outcome. Now your behavior is going to change it's going to create a different outcome, which is going to reinforce your focus, story, self-talk, stories, belief, and it just becomes a feedback loop. If you're on the dark train, it's a negative feedback loop. If you're on the bright train, it's a positive feedback loop. And it's all under your control.
Yeah. Dang, man. I remember after our coaching sessions, my brain was just fried because I was trying to keep up with all the knowledge that you have. Thank you for coming in, man. Like I said, you've literally changed my life. And I don't say that about, there might be 3 people in my life that I say that to. So you're awesome. I hope people listen to this. And if you want to get the full grasp of it, you're gonna have to listen to it 5, 10, 15 times and take notes. And yeah, man, you're an amazing person. Thank you.
Well, Cameron, thank you. And you need to know, you changed my life. And I mean that. I've coached a lot of folks.
Yeah.
And, you don't ever want to have to say, you don't want to say I have my favorites. But you know what? There are just some people that you just feel like, boy, oh boy, my objective is to transform lives.
Yeah.
And to do so with someone who has the ability to turn around and transform lives of their own.
Yeah.
That's how much better does that get, right?
Yeah.
And seeing the commitment you have to your growth mindset, your commitment to being the best that you can possibly be is inspiring.
Oh, thanks, man.
To watch you turn around and say, I want to share this, to create a studio so you can help others.
Yeah.
Create better lives. What more could I ask for? I mean, hello. I'm all set. Just having had that relationship with you, and I'm happy that it's never, ever dissipated.
Yeah, you're the man. Appreciate you, man.
We'll hug after the camera.
Right.